What's up guys, Chris here, and yes, it's finally time for the first Eden Zero theory video, or main discussion video, if I want to be more honest. In this video, as the thumbnail and title suggest, we're going to be discussing how Ziggy can use 2 ether gears, how he obtained it, and why this is a very intriguing and cool concept that might not even be something for him, or if it's something that only he can in fact do. Before we get into the nitty gritty of this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help. Also, don't forget to check out my Instagram and Twitter accounts if you want to see me update and post more, see what's going on in my daily life, or when I update videos if notifications do not work for you here on YouTube. And also, don't forget to check out my Patreon and Ko-fi accounts if you want to support the channel more directly and see me doing more videos outside of chapter reviews more frequently than I normally do, as it really does help and I can get these videos out a lot quicker. Now, with that said and out of the way, let's get into this discussion video. Now, as we all know, Ziggy is a very prominent and strong character in the story. Not only does he have the Satan Soul Gravity Ether Gear, but now it seems that he has Poseidon Nero's Wormhole Ether Gear. Now, in chapter 164 of Eden Zero, we got the conclusion of the fight between Shiki and Shura and Ziggy and Nero. And in that fight with Ziggy and Nero, we saw Ziggy use an ability called Gravity Drain. And by the end of the chapter, he states that I'm going to test out this new ability that I've gained, and he creates a wormhole and hits a button on another planet. So Ziggy managed to gain another Ether Gear. Now here's a very important piece of information. It was not stated at all, from my recollection, that you can only have one Ether Gear. I do not believe this has been stated in the story that you can only have one Ether Gear, but perhaps implied that you can only have one Ether Gear. Now, my explanation of how things are going on with Ziggy is the obvious. He used his Gravity Ether Gear, that particular skill, Gravity Drain, to basically make Nero's Ether Gear literally fall to him. Literally used his gravity to force the Ether Gear out of Nero's body and into his. But how can that 2 Ether Gear exist within one body? My thoughts and opinions, and I believe other people have brought this up as well, is the fact that since Ether Gear is technically machinery, that since Ziggy is an android, it is very possible for another Ether Gear to coincide within him. So it's very possible that another Ether Gear can basically work alongside his Gravity Ether Gear. Whether he can have multiple Ether Gear is still up in the air. But the fact that he's an android, and the fact that Ether Gear are technically machines, well, magical machines, to be quite honest, it makes perfect sense how they could be integrated into his own body. It makes it easier, perhaps not even that big of a strain on his body, and over the last 3 years, during the time skip, chances are he must have modified his body to fully handle the strain of that Ether Gear. Now, there's also a possibility that maybe humans can use 2 Ether Gear, but the thing that I just said about Ziggy being a mechanical android makes a whole lot of sense, because with how Ether Gear works, chances are a human body might not be able to withstand having 2 full Ether Gears within their own bodies, and perhaps they will conflict or clash with each other when you're trying to use it. Especially since many humans who do have Ether Gear, or just organic life forms in general, as there are aliens in the series and other species, it's very highly possible that it just can't be done, because a lot of people spend their whole lives learning and mastering their Ether Gear. So to have 2, it could put not only a big strain on their own bodies, but it could also be very difficult to master one or the other, thus making it a lot more difficult to contain both within your body and being able to use both at the exact same time. Which is why being an android is a bit of a cheat code, since Ziggy is machining, just modify his body to fit the new strain of an extra Ether Gear. But there's also the fact that it's just an ability with the Satan Soul Ether Gear, as we've seen back in the fight against Drac and Joe, and around chapter, I believe, 98, 99. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, because I can't go back to every single chapter. I think I might have written this wrong in the script. But when Shiki uses Overdrive to fight Draken Joe. His Ether Gear allowed him to make the memories of Draken Joe fall to him. He used his gravity to force memories into himself, and he saw Draken Joe's core memories. So perhaps Gravity Drain works the same way as I just mentioned. And perhaps it's the nature of the Satan Soul Gravity Ether Gear to pull in other Ether Gears and merge them as one. Or at least being basically a sub Ether Gear, or a sub power to the main power of Satan's Soul. As it could also be very difficult to master. It makes a lot of sense as Gravity has been shown to do a lot of things in the series, whether it be Shiki basically gaining the memories from a previous time loop, to forcing Draken Joe's memories into himself to see what's been going on with Draken Joe, how he became the way he is. As well as the fact with Ziggy gaining a new Ether Gear. So the explanation could be the fact that yes, Satan's Soul can drag Ether Gear out of opponents and place them into your own body, but it's very possible that it could put a strain on your body if you're not an android to modify yourself to fully coexist with two or more Ether Gears. But it's also another strong possibility, and this is, I think, one of the more cooler. The second thing that I just mentioned is much cooler and fits with the series and how the whole Xenolith warning of falling to darkness, the darkness of gravity, can work, is the fact that Satan's Soul can actually steal and force Ether Gears from other people. Now, I don't remember which video this was, but someone in my comments mentioned, what if Ziggy used Gravity Drain to steal Weiss's Machina Maker? And if he did that, that would make Ziggy incredibly OP, even more so, because not only will he be able to use insanely strong gravity, and use that gravity to steal other Ether Gear, he could warp, but he can also use Machina Maker to modify his own body to make it so stronger, faster, and more capable of hosting more Ether Gear. Which is honestly a really cool idea. But yeah, I think the main reason why Ziggy can use multiple Ether Gear now is because of Satan's Soul. He can make other Ether Gear fall into his, thus allowing him to gain the abilities of that Ether Gear, whether it be just him getting another Ether Gear in general, like placed into his body through Satan's Soul, whether it merging with the Satan's Soul Ether Gear, or Satan's Soul being the exact same thing as it is, but it's being able to absorb the abilities of that Ether Gear. It's still all up in the air right now, and I feel like we will get confirmation very soon. But another quick piece of information before I end out this video is that in Chapter 174, when the Eden Zero crew were facing off against Feather's troops, Feather used this thing called an Ether Link, where she essentially gave her troops a link to her own Ether Gear, allowing them to use the powers of her Ether Gear. Now this is something that could be essentially another cheat code or a lesser version of what Ziggy is doing. Feather was allowing her troops to gain access to her own Ether Gear temporarily, and only a select number of people perhaps they could handle that. But this is something that I'm perhaps overthinking, but I mentioned this in that initial chapter review. If Ether Link is something that anybody could do and learn, then imagine the combinations of using your own Ether Gear with, let's say, the subsidiary of another one. This could have been Mashima stating people can use multiple Ether Gears potentially, but this is probably the safest way to do so, as it puts no strain on the body, etc. No real negative side effects from what we've seen. And for all we know, having two Ether Gears could potentially kill you. But with what we saw with Ziggy, like I said, it could just be the true nature of Satan's Soul, just pull everything towards it and make it a part of it. Whether it be memories, Ether Gear, or anything really. But yeah, that's essentially my thoughts on why Ziggy can use multiple Ether Gear. It could either be the fact that he's an android and the fact that his Ether Gear forcing out Nero's Ether Gear and adding it onto himself was fairly easy despite how damaged he was, but I'm more leaning towards the camp that it is the true nature of Satan's Soul to pull things toward it, to make anything and everything fall towards it and become a part of it. In conclusion, Ziggy's Ether Gear Satan's Soul is the reason why he's been able to use multiple Ether Gear. I know, fairly obvious, but the true reason why that's possible is because that is the true nature of Satan's soul. It can make other things fall towards him, whether it be people's memories or their ether gear or power in general, and become a part of him, thus showing how truly dangerous Ziggy is and how truly dangerous the Satan soul can in fact be, as well as give us some potential for what Ziggy can do in the future. Perhaps he will do something similar to Ziggy, but it could have a strong strain on his body, and he might not be able to handle it, him being human at all. But that's my thoughts and opinions on why Ziggy can use two ether gear, why he can use multiple ether gear. Leave your thoughts and opinions down below on this video and this topic in general. What are your thoughts on the matter? Do you think I covered the bases to an extent on what can possibly happen with Ziggy's ether gear and how this is more or less just the true nature of the Satan soul ether gear that he currently has? Leave your thoughts and opinions down below, as well as what other theories you'd like me to talk about, or just characters in general and plot points that you want elaborated in the future. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @TheGreekWeeb to see me post more frequently. And also check out my Patreon and Coffee account if you guys want to help support the channel more directly and see me do more videos more frequently outside of my initial chapter reviews. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.